In this video, I show you how I made the walking wheel for my tortoise, or it can be used for any small animal. I thought it would be a good idea to get one for my tortoise, Lenny, for exercise while he's stuck indoors in his table during the winter months. But the wheels I found on the market were too small for Lenny. The biggest I could find was 8 centimeters, so I thought I would DIY it. Here are the materials I used. I have 16 of these wooden blocks, some lolly sticks, and this is a 16mm aperture ball bearing, which I will bolt in the center of this craft circle. First things first, I start by measuring my tortoise. I do this by placing him on a piece of A4 paper and marking out his dimensions. As you can see, he is stretched out, so this is quite good so that I get the maximum width of his body so that I can make my wheel to his dimensions. As it goes, my wheel is 25 centimeters in diameter and my tortoise is 15. Onto the build. I start by gluing 4 blocks together. This will act as a buttress at the back of the wheel holding the axle. Preparing the axle. I'm using a 30 centimeter long wooden dowel. Though it is 16mm diameter, I had a job fitting it in the aperture of the ball bearing, even though I did buy a 16mm diameter bearing. Anyway, lots of sanding and fitting later, I finally wedged it in there. Next job was to drill a 16mm hole through the buttress and the center of the craft circle to thread the axle through. We didn't have a 16mm drill bit, so we had to experiment with lining everything up, drilling a small pilot hole and then gradually increasing the size of the drill bit to make a bigger and bigger hole. Yes, we did end up splitting the wood of the first buttress, so I had to glue 4 more blocks together and start again, but we got there in the end. However, I ran into a bit of a snag, as you can see here. The wheel is touching the base and I haven't even added the platform on the wheel yet where the tortoise will run. However, easy fix. I needed to raise the buttress a little, so I added a couple of pieces of scrap wood to make the wheel higher on the base. Then I screwed in a couple of screws just to secure it. Okay, so this is where we're currently at. The spin has a slight wobble to it as I didn't get the ball bearing right in the center of the wheel, but it works fine for our purposes. Next thing to do is to make the inside of the wheel. My initial plan was to fix the lolly sticks directly onto the edge of the circle, but there isn't enough surface area to stick on. So I have to credit my husband with coming up with the idea to use some soft foam. We had some offcuts of a guitar amp mat I could use, but an old yoga mat or similar would work fine. These were cut to 15 centimeters and nailed onto the edge of the wheel. Next was the easiest but the longest part of the build, and that's sticking the lolly sticks onto the foam backing for stability. Okay, fast forward and the wheel is now complete, ready for painting. I had to cut the axle down to size. All done, you would think, right? Alas, no. So during the first test phase, I was happy with the height, the spin, despite the wobble, and he seemed to like it. But what I found was that once Lenny had dismounted the wheel, he, being the curious and active creature he is, decided to explore the whole of the device. Under it, behind it. I was worried he could get his head or shell trapped behind it or under it, and with moving parts, that could be a disastrous situation, so I had to come up with a solution. So I used the remainder of my blocks and built a wall to encase the back of the wheel on both sides.